Hi, welcome to the Thrifty Moms DIY. Today we're going to be making this towel hook out of leftover luxury vinyl planks. So stick around and you'll get all the details how to make this awesome little hook. Here's a list of all of the things that you need. To get the details, check out our blog at thriftymomsdiy.com. The first thing you want to do is measure your pieces with your tape measure, speed square, and dry erase marker. This will help ease the process as you go along. Next, you'll want to cut the tile down into the pieces you previously measured. This is easy if you just use a little bit of pressure and your tile cutter. If you cut your pieces a little too long, don't worry, you can always cut them again. Just put them back through the tile cutter and watch your fingers. Now it's time to cut down your plywood. I originally did this in a 20-inch long by 6-inch wide piece, but unfortunately I deleted all of my project videos, so I'm recreating this in a smaller piece. This one's actually 6 inches tall by 3.5 inches wide. But it works either way, and I still want to give you the step-by-step instructions on how to do it. After you've cut down your plywood, you'll want to go ahead and lay out your tile in the configuration that you like. I used different configurations to find out which one I liked, and I also used some extra plywood so the pieces wouldn't continue to fall off. Now is a good time to note that it's best to label each one of your pieces with a piece of tape, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, so you can keep those configurations and everything organized. The next step is to apply the lines of where your plywood is underneath of the tile. So I use this with a level and I move the tiles in and out to make sure I can see exactly where the edges are, because right now they hang over and you can't see them very well. After you have your lines drawn, you want to go ahead and start cutting your tile. This is where having the numbers on the tile is really handy because you can quickly and easily put the puzzle pieces back together. It does take a little finagling. You have to kind of cut and recut and also maybe trim the edges a little bit to make sure that you don't have anything hanging over. Cutting with this tile cutter is a great tool, but it's not exact cutting, so you'll have to use an X-Acto knife to try and get some of the rough edges off. Here's an example of how to get the rough edges off. I said an X-Acto knife earlier, but I actually meant a box cutter. My mistake. Once you've cut and trimmed all your pieces, you're going to want to go ahead and glue everything together. I use an all-purpose glue that can handle not only wood, but plastic, metal, anything like that. I can't really say the name of this product because I don't have the authorization to, but it has a type of an ape on it, if that helps. But I go ahead and glue everything down and then let it dry. You have a little bit of time to make sure things are moved around correctly and in the right spot, but just go ahead and get it the way that you want it and leave it to dry. I would also suggest laying something with a little bit of weight on top. Nothing too heavy or else it'll push out the pieces and they won't dry in the area that you want it to. After letting the pieces dry overnight, I go ahead and check to make sure that everything's in the place that I want it to be. It is. So the next step is to go ahead and start configuring the trim. I went ahead and bought about a 10-foot piece of, I believe this is 3/4 inch trim from my local hardware store, and then I just made some kind of rough measurements of where I needed it to be cut. The cutting of trim is a little difficult, so it takes some finagling. I start off generally larger than what I need to be, and then kind of scale it down from there. Just watch out for your fingers because cutting with a miter saw, you do have to make some close cuts, but other than that, it's good to go. After you've configured your trim pieces, it's time to get them ready for painting. I just give them a light sand with a fine grit sandpaper, and then I lay everything out to where when it's time to paint, everything gets a nice even coat, including the screws that I use to screw in the coat hook. The coat hook I have is silver, so I paint it black. Now it's time to have some fun with a nail gun. I go ahead and adjust my nail gun to make sure it doesn't shoot the nail too deep into the trim, and then I line the trim where I need it on my piece. I use just regular tape to hold it on there since it's just me working on this project. And then as I start to nail, I make sure and keep my fingers out of the range of the nail gun at all times, just in case there's any mishaps. But this goes pretty quickly. Once you're done, you just remove the tape and everything should be where it needs to be. At this point, we can go ahead and hang the picture hangers. I just use a self-leveling picture hanger, and it goes pretty smoothly with just using my regular power drill. As you near the end of this project, you'll notice that some of the pieces have gaps in between the trim edges and the actual pieces. That's because it's not an exact science when you cut these pieces with the tile cutter. Using some paintable caulk will help fill in those gaps and give it a nice finished edge. Before the caulking dries, you simply remove it with a wet paper towel. Once the caulking dries, you'll want to go ahead and use painter's tape along the edges to make as straight of a line as you can. That way, visually, when you paint with your spray paint, everything looks as straight as possible. If you do happen to get some spray paint on the actual vinyl pieces, don't worry, it scrapes off very easily. The vinyl is very forgiving. Once everything dries, you just go ahead and peel away your painter's tape and you're good to go. The final step is installing your hook. I just went ahead and marked where I wanted my hook to be, used my drill to pre-drill the holes, and then I switched out the bit and used my drill to screw in the screws. I then used a hand screwdriver to tighten them towards the end. The cost to make this project was relatively low. We already had all the materials since we were using the tile from the flooring that we did in the bathroom. And you can see some examples of where we hung the hooks in our bathroom, but they can really be used all over the house. I hope that you liked this tutorial today. Please like and subscribe to see more from the Thrifty Moms DIY.